The war room of the Terran Defense Council was silent except for the hum of data streams crawling across transparent screens. A dozen men sat in shadow, faces drawn, each waiting for the other to speak. At the far end of the table stood Commander Rafe Holt, a man carved from the same steel as the ships he commanded. His uniform bore no medals, only the simple insignia of a soldier who had survived more wars than anyone should. The room smelled faintly of ozone and fatigue. On the central display, the recording played again, the moment Elias Kale was burned alive on Zarkor Prime. No one spoke during it. They had seen it countless times in the last 12 hours, but the silence it brought each time was absolute. When the flames consumed the man who had been the voice of Earth, the video feed ended with static. Rafe didn't blink. His fists were clenched, so tightly the knuckles had gone white. "End playback," he said quietly. The image vanished. The council's chairman, old and tired, leaned forward. "Commander Holt, we are still verifying the authenticity." "It's authentic," Rafe interrupted, voice flat. "That's his voice. That's his face." The Dominion didn't even try to hide it. Another man, a strategist from the Pacific Command, shifted uneasily. "If we retaliate now, we risk total war. Earth's fleets aren't positioned for." Rafe's gaze cut across the table like a blade. "They burned a diplomat alive. They murdered a man whose only weapon was his words. If we do nothing, we invite the galaxy to do the same." The strategist looked down. "We're not ready." "We were never meant to be ready," Rafe said. "We were meant to be underestimated." The words hung in the air. He turned away from the table, walking toward the viewport that looked out over Earth's orbit. The curve of the planet glowed faintly blue, clouds drifting like quiet ghosts. He had spent his entire life defending that fragile sphere, fighting wars so others could build peace. Elias Kale had been the proof that peace could hold, until now. He remembered the last time they'd spoken, years ago in a dim bar near the spaceport in New Geneva. Elias had been smiling as always, speaking about diplomacy as if it were art, not survival. "Words can stop wars, Rafe," he had said. Rafe had laughed. "Not against things that don't understand them." Now, that argument had found its proof in fire. Rafe straightened. "We strike back," he said. "Not with negotiation." The winds howled across Antarctica like the voice of a restless god. Ice sheets cracked under the weight of the descending transport, its landing thrusters melting blue fissures into the ancient frost. Commander Rafe Holt stepped down from the ramp, his breath crystallizing in the air, the cold gnawing even through the insulated armor. Around him, the white expanse stretched into infinity, broken only by the outline of a structure half buried in ice, a smooth, black monolith, untouched by time or erosion. It rose from the glacier, like the blade of something vast and forgotten. He had seen its coordinates buried deep in Earth's restricted archives, under layers of denial and misdirection. The signal detected after Elias's death had originated here. It had not stopped pulsing since. Now, standing before it, Rafe felt that same vibration resonating in his bones, rhythmic and steady, like a colossal heartbeat waiting beneath the surface. "Commander," said Captain Arden, his second-in-command, his voice distorted by the suit's intercom. "The readings are impossible. The structure isn't composed of any element on record. It's humming." Rafe didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the monolith. He approached slowly, his boots sinking into the snow. Each step felt heavier, as though gravity itself were thickening. He remembered Elias's final words before the flames took him, then let them wake. At the time, they had sounded like defiance. Now, he wasn't sure they weren't a warning. He placed a gloved hand against the surface. The vibration surged up his arm, then through his chest, into his skull. For a heartbeat, he could hear a voice that wasn't a voice, layered, ancient, and vast. The cold air thickened around him, and for an instant the world shifted. He wasn't standing in snow anymore. A vision unfolded before him. A sky of fractured constellations, oceans boiling beneath firestorms, and figures, towering silhouettes, neither flesh nor metal, their forms shifting with impossible geometry. They were not gods, Not in any sense religion could name, but they were worshipped once, long before human language existed. They had walked across a newborn Earth when the stars were still learning to burn. And then they had slept, buried deep beneath the planet, sealed by those who feared what waking them would bring. Rafe stumbled back, his hand tearing away from the monolith. The cold returned like a slug. The void was alive with movement. From the edge of known space, the human fleet emerged in perfect formation, silent and cold, like a wall of judgment cutting through the darkness. The TDS Revenant led the armada, its obsidian hull absorbing the starlight. Commander Rafe Holt stood on the bridge, surrounded by the rhythmic pulse of machinery and the soft hum of engines built for vengeance. The galaxy outside trembled under the weight of the impossible. The old ones had awakened, and their presence stretched across the stars like a storm without a center. Every sensor flickered, every communication channel bled static that whispered in forgotten tongues. "Status," Rafe said, his voice steady despite the growing distortion echoing through the ship's systems. "All fleets in position," reported Captain Arden. "But, sir, the readings, they're everywhere. Every system we monitor shows gravitational distortions. It's like the laws of space are rewriting themselves." Rafe nodded slowly. "They're not distortions. They're marching." Outside the viewport, the darkness shifted. Where stars once shone, shapes began to form, vast silhouettes moving within the void, colossal and indistinct, their presence bending light and reason. The fleet's instruments tried to define them but failed. The data collapsed under paradox. These were not ships, nor entities that could be measured. They were the old ones, answering a call buried in humanity's defiance. Across the communication network, fragments of terrified alien voices cut through, Zarkor command channels filled with panic, pleas, and disbelief. Their empire had mobilized in full, tens of thousands of warships forming a barrier around their homeworld. Yet the defensive lines faltered as invisible forces tore through them, ships collapsing in on themselves like paper burned by unseen fire. Arden turned from the console, eyes wide. "They're being erased, sir. Not destroyed, erased. There's nothing left where they were." Rafe didn't look away from the viewport. "Then maybe now they'll understand what fear really means." A burst of static interrupted the silence, followed by a voice thick with dread. It was Lord Zor, transmitted across every open channel. "Human commander, call them off. You've unleashed something that cannot be contained. This is no war. It's extinction." Rafe's jaw tightened. "You lit the fire, Zor. We just stopped putting it out." He ended the transmission. No applause, no celebration followed. The crew remained still, aware that the words would ripple through every surviving civilization, reshaping the galaxy's balance. Fear would keep them distant for centuries. Rafe stepped toward the viewport once more. The stars seemed dimmer now, their light softened by the lingering dust of what had been destroyed. He thought of Elias again, not the diplomat burned alive on foreign soil, but the friend who had believed humanity's voice could change the stars. In a way it had, just not through peace. Arden approached quietly. "Sir, what now?" Rafe looked out into the endless dark. "Now we rebuild. And we remember." Outside, fragments of light drifted through space, remnants of the old ones passing. They shimmered faintly, forming shapes that almost resembled wings before fading. The silence that followed was vast but not empty. It was the silence of consequence, of something greater than victory or loss. Rafe remained at the viewport long after the others left, watching the horizon of stars until his reflection blurred with them. For the first time, he understood what Elias had meant all along, that humanity's strength was not in its weapons, nor in its gods, but in its refusal to yield, even when the universe itself demanded it. Far away, beyond the reach of sensors, a pulse echoed once more beneath Earth's oceans, slow, deliberate, eternal. The old ones had returned to their slumber, but the stars would never forget the day humanity spoke in their name.